What is up, guys? And we are back with a new brand. We are no longer known as the Bloody Manor. We have a new name. It's called The Manor. It was harder to get guests on the show and talk about the show when it was strictly horror themed. I wanted to kind of make it available to everybody, but today our show is about the best of the decade, or in our opinion, the best of the decade. I'm really excited to go over these lists. Let me introduce my panelists for tonight. There's supposed to be 6 of us total, but a few people got sick. A few people couldn't make it. So there's just 3 of us, but we're still going to discuss the movies like the 5 panelists were here, or the 5 other panelists were here. Introducing first, you know him here on Take 3, Malcolm Lay. How are you doing, good sir?
I'm doing good. Just ready to talk movies.
Me too, me too. Caleb Coho, how are you doing, good sir?
I'm good. Perfectly balanced as all things should be with this group now being whittled in half. Love that Thanos snap. Also, I'm really happy you got a janitor in here to clean up the blood because, not going to lie, a little disconcerting. I never wanted to step foot within an 80-mile radius of the manor when it was all covered in blood because I didn't want to catch anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Blood's not my scene, so I'm glad it's just now it looks like a nice, pretty manor. So I'm happy.
It's a pretty place to be.
Love it.
But we're gonna bring up our first movie, and our first movie is Whiplash. I'm really excited to talk about this movie. Overall grade performance. I think Malcolm gave it the lowest grade on here, so let's go to Malcolm first. No, Malcolm, you didn't give the grade. I'm sorry.
Haven't seen Whiplash.
That's right. Malcolm hasn't seen Whiplash.
That's worse.
This movie, let's talk about it, Caleb, because it's me, you right here. This is probably one of my favorite movies of the decade.
Excellent.
As a person that's a musician, it kind of definitely, the performances alone, Miles Teller, J.K. Simmons, 2 of the best performances of the decade, in my opinion. Caleb, some thoughts on Whiplash?
This is the Chazelle film that I saw last of his big 3. I saw this one last. Most people, saw this first, like they should. And if I had seen Whiplash first, maybe that would have influenced my opinion of La La Land. I don't think it really would have, but I freaking love Whiplash. It's such a different movie than La La Land, which was my introduction to Damien Chazelle, and it's like totally, it just cements that First Man's my least favorite movie he's made, because he can do so much better. Whiplash is just so, it's there's a reason why Blumhouse put it out. It's a horror movie, but it's not a horror movie. It's just it makes you on edge. You're terrified of J.K. Simmons. It's a brilliantly told story, well written. Yeah, great film.
I 110% agree with you. Let's talk about this. They made this movie on $3.3 million. And it made $49 million just in the box office alone.
Yeah, buddy.
It's an incredible film. It follows a drummer. If you haven't seen it, spoilers for if you haven't seen it, but it follows a drummer attending his first year as a jazz student, and he aspires to be like Buddy Rich. If you don't know who Buddy Rich is, go look up Buddy Rich, one of the best drummers that's ever touched a drumstick. J.K. Simmons' performance in this, I completely agree with Coho. It makes you very uneasy at points. It makes you kind of get anxious really well, something that, Blumhouse is really known for doing. This movie, like I said, is one of my favorite of the decades. I actually nominated this movie, and it's you can see why if you've ever seen it. The tension, what it's like to kind of descend into kind of madness when it comes to a character. And then the relationship with Miles Teller and his father. I'm trying to remember who plays the father. Paul Reiser. Paul Reiser, their relationship is so counterbalanced to what the relationship he has with J.K. Simmons.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And additionally, Melissa Benoist, and her relationship with Miles Teller is heartbreaking. And it's an excellent chemistry between those two, and how they play off each other. She's a very minor role, but very important in the flux of the story. But yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So there were actually 3 people that put in. 2 of our panelists. We had, like I said, we had actually 6 panelists. 1 panelist didn't give me their grades, but out of the 5 that I got, 3 of us all gave it an A plus, which means it ended with an A plus.
Yeah, baby.
Whiplash, well deserved, well
Excellent.
deserved. All right, so we're gonna get Malcolm in on this story this time. But real quick, Malcolm, from how me and Coho pitched it, is this something you want to see?
It's been on my list to watch the longest time. I just haven't found it on any of the streaming services as of yet.
I got you. Yeah, it's definitely well worth a see and a watch. Just for the performances alone. Next up, we're moving on to I think my second movie that I put on the list, which is Get Out. Now this one, Malcolm, you did rank this one the lowest out of all of us. I'm going to start with you. Give me some of your thoughts of Get Out and why you might have given it the grade that you gave it.
Yeah, I mean, like Get Out, like I enjoyed it. It's one of those ones that every time, like I revisited it, and I've always just thought it was just okay. And like the performances are great, but I think the story just didn't resonate with me. And this I've watched it multiple times, see if I've missed anything, but just each time, I've just felt the same about it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a fair point. I mean, it might not even have been, not just like meant for you, but like maybe you just weren't gelling with it. Caleb, me and you both gave it the same grade, which is it's pretty cool that we were spot on that one. Some thoughts that you have on this, on Get Out, Jordan Peele's directorial debut. Some thoughts.
I came to Get Out pretty late in 2017. Like that came out like February, March-ish, and everyone was like raving. And I just never had the inclination to like. I was like, I'm not a horror guy. I'm not gonna like this. It's whatever. But everyone, like, by the time August, September came around, everyone was like, Best Picture. It's got to get a Best Picture nomination. It's one of the best movies of the year. I'm like, I know people really liked it, but let's go see. And I was like, no, yeah, this is a Best Picture nomination. I could totally see this getting into the 10 best movies of the year because it's much more than just a horror movie. It's not just like a horror movie. It's like a thriller more so than a horror film. And it's more a horror story, but it has a lot to say about racial politics in America. And I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting Jordan Peele to go that hard in a directorial debut, and I respect it so much. I like Get Out a lot.
Completely agree with you. The racial undertones in this movie is phenomenal when you finally catch on. I saw this movie for a second time and caught even more than I did the first time. I still enjoy this movie very much. Jordan Peele showed us what he was going to do, when he had the chance outside of comedy. If you've seen their sketch show, that wasn't something that a lot of people thought he was going to be able to do. And he kind of proved a lot of people wrong. It also shows you how to detect psychopaths if they eat cereal and eat Fruit Loops and milk separate. They might be a psychopath.
Not Mike. They definitely are a psychopath, and you need to get out.
Get Out. Get it. So we gave as an overall grade for Get Out, which I think is a travesty, B plus.
That's terrible. I gave this like an A, man.
I gave it an A as well. I want
to hear from Sourpuss. What's wrong with Get Out?
Yeah, actually, what besides maybe it not gelling with you, what else didn't you feel was worth this getting a higher rating?
Look, for me, I just thought the story was like really slow and that personally, and to me, like I like my horror movies scary. I didn't find it scary at all. So,
hey, that's fair. I personally, I don't think it deserves that low of a grade. But we'll get to movies that you guys are gonna feel that deserve a higher grade from me as well. So I'm ready to defend it. But moving on to what I think should be probably for a performer should be his Oscar-winning role this year. And that's Marriage Story. Um, I think this movie was fantastic. It's a realistic depiction of what a divorce is like, the ending of a relationship that you've had for so long. Um, and it shows how much toll it can take on a person. Well, yes, I'm not going to pop this in every, couple of months to watch, Marriage Story, because I don't want to cry and feel really sad. For human beings. This movie, for performances, for story, Noah Baumbach killed it with this story. Adam Driver deserves the Oscar nom, and you kind of got to give Scarlett Johansson her recognition in the role as well, because she pulled a lot out of Adam Driver, I think. But everybody still is above line. Caleb, you gave it its lowest version of this letter. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. One of the other panelists did, but you gave it its second lowest. But it's still an A. So,
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Marriage Story is excellent. I wasn't expecting that much emotion and like nuance to that story. I was kind of just expecting it to destroy me emotionally, which it does, but like I thought it was gonna be nonstop carnage to my soul. And it was in the most subtle way, where you saw, like, you sat there and you were just exhausted with them. You were exhausted with them by the time the boiling point is reached, and then you release with them. It's the most cathartic film to watch this year. Driver should win. This movie helped solidify Driver as maybe my favorite actor working today. He had 3 excellent performances this year, and now I go back and I watch anything that he's in, and I go, how did I not see it before? You're maybe the best actor working today, and he should win for Marriage Story 100%, but it's Joaquin's to lose. But I 100% agree. Marriage Story is excellent. It's going to win the screenplay Oscar for Baumbach, as it should. I think ScarJo might actually win too. So it's gonna have a fine year at the Oscars, I think.
I agree. Malcolm, Marriage Story, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I did not know what to expect from the trailer, because when I first saw the trailer for it, was like, this wasn't a movie I didn't think would resonate with me as much as it did. But I absolutely loved this movie, and I just thought that the performances and everything was great, and just like it felt like you were watching a documentary on a realistic depiction of how marriages break down and divorce proceedings and all that. And I just thought it was pretty much a perfect movie.
That law office scene is why Laura Dern got the supporting role nom. That it shows you how vicious it can switch. Oh, what do you want for lunch? We're going to be civil here, and then she comes back and hits him even harder. I think it's incredible. The courtroom scene. That was heart-wrenching for me to watch. Like, you told these people this information to destroy the person that you're sitting next to, that you told you would be that together till death do you part. And we gave Marriage Story an overall grade of an A. Well deserving. I don't think it's too much off. Me and Malcolm both had an A plus. Russell had an A minus, and Caleb had it at an A. Next, we are going to go to our only film on here that it has a solo panelist listed on it. So, Malcolm, go ahead and give us Hunt for the Wilder People. Give us the pitch and sell us on this movie.
Yeah, Hunt for the Wilder People is a great movie, because you got like people like Sam Neill, you got Gillian Dennison, just acting their ass off. But basically, the story is Ricky Baker, who's played by Julian Dennison, is a foster kid and is a really sort of bad egg, and just someone that keeps bouncing from foster home to foster home. He gets sent to live with Sam Neill and his partner at the time, and but then events happen that I'm not going to spoil too much, because there's stuff that is important for the plot that I'm not going to steal. But they end up sort of lost in the bush and all that, and Sam Neill and Ricky Baker just sort of bond sort of over a bunch of events that happen. It's just a great story, and it's one that everyone needs to watch. I don't know how much it got released over in the States, but it's one of those New Zealand ones I think that's great. It's written by Taika Waititi. I mean, he's done a lot of good. So.
Yeah, you tell me Taika Waititi and Sam Neill, I'll probably check it out, definitely. But Malcolm, actually, Caleb, and thoughts, you going to check it out? Going to not check it out?
This is one I've heard a lot about. I've never, the only exposure I've had to Taika Waititi as a filmmaker are Thor Ragnarok and Jojo Rabbit, and to some extent, What We Do in the Shadows. I've never seen that movie, but I've seen the show, which has some influence from him. So I love his style. I think he's a great director. So it's a story that I think I would enjoy. Kane is going to put a gun to my head and say, watch every single Waititi movie within the next few months for me. And this is probably the first one I'm going to watch. So
sweet. And Malcolm did give it a A+. All right, moving on to another movie that came out this year, a Rian Johnson film known as Knives Out. This movie is incredible, but I'm going to go ahead and start with Malcolm. Malcolm, you gave it the highest grade. There were only 3 people that gave it grades. You gave it the highest. So you get the honor of starting out on Knives Out.
Yeah, this is the movie which knocked Avengers Endgame down a spot on my top 10 movies of 2019. This is a good take on a classic murder mystery movie, one for its own twists in there, which made it more fresh. But you've got a stacked cast of Ana de Armas, Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, and all that cast, they work so well together. It's pretty much a really high profile cast, and I just think it's a really fantastic movie from last year.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Caleb, thoughts on Knives Out?
It's a great film. It was for me coming into 2019 my most anticipated movie of the year, more than Endgame, because I heard Rian Johnson was writing and directing an original murder mystery with a character that was going to be like Hercule Poirot, played by Daniel Craig. I was like, I'm in. And every time they made casting announcements, I was like, this is even greater than I thought it could be. So my hype was unfair. There were so many unfair expectations on Knives Out, and it met every single one of my unfair expectations. So this movie is pretty incredible. I really love it. It's definitely one of my favorites of the year. One of the best, I think. Yeah, I've watched it twice. It's better on rewatches even. So yeah, it's an excellent film. I'm a sucker for a good murder mystery. So.
110%. This movie is incredible. The ensemble cast that's in it: Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Don Johnson, Toni Collette, Lakeith Stanfield, Christopher Plummer. The list goes on, but it's literally probably how he got that ensemble cast to work so well together is ridiculous. And it doesn't just have one simple plot twist. The ending of the movie is fantastic. I was looking how he was going to pay this off. It's very high on my list for this year. Not my favorite movie, but one of my favorite movies. I definitely think if you haven't seen Knives Out, we're sticking away from spoilers because we don't want to, if people haven't seen it, some people haven't seen it, even though it's still early in the year. That's why we're doing that. But Knives Out for us as an overall group got an A. I think that's a fantastic grade. There was nobody that really brought it down anything below an A minus or anything like that. We just had an A. A is in total. Next up for us on the docket is a movie known as Black Swan. The 2 people that gave it the highest grade are not on the panel. But all 3 of us voted the same grade. So if that helps you out any. Black Swan for me is an okay movie. I don't think it's the best that we've ever seen from Natalie Portman. Mila Kunis is cool in it. I think it's a cool story. It's a psychological thriller, but I don't find myself wanting to rewatch that movie at all. Not in the same sense that I don't find myself wanting to watch Marriage Story. I just didn't enjoy the movie. If you enjoyed it, that's good for you. Continue to enjoy it. Do not berate us in the comment section. We just have our opinions about the movies. Caleb, you also gave it the same grade that I did. Some thoughts on Black Swan?
I gave it an N/A because I have never seen Black Swan.
I put it in somebody else's space. My bad. Okay, Malcolm, you gave it the same grade that I did. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Black Swan, like just like you, is okay. I think, ironically, I think it still ends up in my top five of the year this came out, which isn't saying a lot, but this is just one of those ones that I enjoyed. I just don't think I haven't actually gone back to sort of watch it to see if I'm sort of feeling any different about it, which is why it sort of landed where it did, what grade was for me.
Oh, absolutely. Coho, have you thought about visiting Black Swan? Why have you stayed away from it? Or
I've seen bits and pieces of Black Swan. I don't know if it's for me. I'm not really a Darren Aronofsky fan. I've seen like 2 or 3 Aronofsky movies, and every single one has ended up pretty low on my list. So I don't know if I'll ever really check out Black Swan. From what I've seen, Natalie Portman's really good. So
yeah, I think she's good in the movie. I don't think it's her best work though. But Black Swan, even with the mistake that I made, it stayed at the same grade. It is a C+. I think that's a fair grade for it. I don't think it's bad. All right, so we're up to the first hot take of the panel. The one that's going to probably get Coho the mostest. That's not a real word. I just like making funny words sometimes. We are up to La La Land. Malcolm and Coho gave this movie the same grade.
Did we? Because I gave this a different grade than I think most.
And I told you, and I corrected your grade.
No, you can't do that. I gave it an A++.
I can't give you an A++. I can give you an A+.
Why? You said grade them, so I graded it an A++.
I told you what the grade was.
I've gotten A++ papers before.
I told you what the grade was. A+ to F.
I gave it an A++. Fight me.
But
this movie does not conform to your conventional rules of grading.
Just wait until you hear what I have to say about this movie. Anyway, go. You are so passionate about this movie. This is your number 1 movie of all time, if I'm not mistaken.
It's my number 1 of all time.
You can go ahead and start on this movie.
So, like, I didn't just walk into this movie and walk out and go, number 1 movie of all time. I walked out of this movie and went, that was really great. And I've gone back and watched it again and again, and every time it climbed higher and higher and higher. And after like 3 rewatches, I'm like, no, this is honestly my number 1 movie of all time, because there's not an aspect of this movie that I think is bad. There's not a single aspect of this movie that I think is bad. I think Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are both great. I think they sing good. They're not classically trained bravado performers, because that's not really what Chazelle's going for. It's supposed to be sort of realistic. So Gosling is like this really like smooth like bass, and Emma Stone is this sort of whispery soprano alto. And I think they have incredible chemistry. They have great performances. The screenplay, I think, is the most underrated part of the movie. Everyone's like, why did it get the Oscar nom? Because the story of that, and that screenplay is airtight. Everything about it is perfect, I think. It's a pitch perfect story. I think in the technical aspects, it's edited incredibly. It's the best cinematography I think I've ever seen in a movie, or at least it's up there. Great score, great songs. Honestly, there's like, this movie fires on all cylinders for me, and it should have won Best Picture in my opinion. I honestly think this is a perfect movie.
All right, going over to Malcolm. Malcolm, you also had this, not the same grade. I'll make Coho feel better, but you had a pretty high grade as well. What are you? Give me some thoughts on this. Why did you have it so high? And everything.
I mean, I wanted to rate it A++++++, but I thought, oh no, I'll confirm to your raves grading, but anyway, this movie is just great. Like I've always been in the mindset because every time I hear people sort of go like the musical complaining about these things, I've always been in that mindset. It's like, well, I don't think like I always disagree. Like the scene doesn't have to be great because I mean, in real life, like no one is as perfect singer as people are in musicals, and like, well, yes. Anyway, I digress, but I really love the story of this, and this is just one that when it comes to original musicals, I'm always sort of hit or miss on, just because like it's a case of it's an original story. I don't know if I enjoy it and all that, but yeah, this is great. The ending sort of comes out of nowhere, but then after revisiting it so many times, um, I've grown to love it even more. So yeah.
All right, absolutely. As the person that gave it the lowest grade on the panel, um, I I think the movie's okay. I caught this movie with all the hype surrounding it, so that always tinted my view. Sometimes it's not that I hate the movie. I definitely don't hate the movie. I don't think it's deserving of all the praises that it gets. Um, but at the same time, we are all different people. Again, do not shoot up the comments. We're all different people. We're just trying to have a discussion about the movies and enjoy them for what they are. I very much can understand why Malcolm and Coho have it so high. But again, I just feel some of the scenes for me don't work. Some of the problems that I have is it seems a little long at times, and it drags for me a little bit. Um, but overall, it's for me a fine movie. Again, I don't berate anybody for their choices, but we did give it an overall grade, and the overall grade is a B plus. Um, let's move on to the next movie down our list. Our next movie down the list is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. This movie for me, actually for all three of us on the panel, we all gave it the same grade, which is phenomenal. One person gave it a slightly lower grade, but is still in the same letter grade. This movie is unique. It's different. The art form and the risks they took with this animation, first and foremost, was great. The character structure, the character's arc, Miles Morales' arc through the entire film of him knowing nothing about how to work with his powers to the point where he is able to combat Kingpin, put in the work, and show that he's has so much growth in him. The supporting cast, my favorite supporting cast is tied for two. Spider Ham and and Noir, Spider Noir. We don't choose the ballroom, we just dance. That whole scene is great. But let's go over to Coho or Malcolm. Malcolm, you start us off on the or go second on this one. Thoughts on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
Yeah, this is what one of my this is probably my most favorite animated film of the decade. And this is just a really great movie. Like this was another one I heard that was announced. I thought I was like, yeah, well, can it actually work? So I think this might have been the first time someone has actually tried to do like a multiverse movie based on a particular one character. So it's one that it could have gone horribly wrong or could have gone like what it did, but the movie is great. It's entertaining and like the references that they throw in there, like the whole hand pointing meme and the Spider-Man song and even this Christmas album. It was just sort of
great.
It was just funny and entertaining and the cast itself is just really stacked.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you there. Coho, thoughts on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse?
I think it's the best animated movie ever made. I say that genuinely. I have hot takes, and I stand by this one. I think there's never. I mean, obviously, there's never been a movie like this ever made. Just from the animation style, but also the fact that they took the storytelling risks that they did and trusted the audience enough to understand we're going to kill Spider-Man in the first 20 minutes of this movie, and you're going to understand that it's going to be okay because we're going to give you the next Spider-Man while we make this movie. And it's pretty incredible that they, like, not only did they take the risk, they also trusted the audience to follow along, that we're going to have 80 different Spider-Men in this movie, and you're going to understand that they're all different. They all come from different universes. You understand what a Spider-Verse is. You get a totally different origin story for a totally new version of Spider-Man that you completely love and connect with. It modernizes Spider-Man in a big way. So what it does for the character of Spider-Man and for superhero movies in general, I think is really special. And I think you just take into account Daniel Pemberton's score and the music and how that even factors into the movie, to the way that, like, just little details, the details that they put into every frame, the references, you can just tell that this was made with love and passion for these characters. And so if you love and are passionate about these characters too, you resonate and absolutely adore this movie in a big way. I love Spider-Man, so Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse is very, very special to me.
I 110% agree with you. I think, again, this movie is something special. If you haven't seen this movie, please go see this movie. You get an Uncle Ben scene in this movie without it being the same trope that they've always done with Uncle Ben. And it's done to not sugarcoat it for the audience. I think it was a fantastic origin story. And the overall grade that we gave for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is an A. There was one person that gave it an A, and it kind of balanced everything. Oh, it took it down a smidge, unfortunately, but the three of us did give it an A+. Let's go over to the Social Network. The Social Network. Ko, I know that you're a super big fan of this movie. Go ahead and start us off on the Social Network.
I think this is the definitive movie of the decade. If you're going to pick a movie to define the 2010s, they nailed it in the first year with The Social Network. The Social Network is maybe one of the best written movies of all time. I worship at the altar of Aaron Sorkin. He is the master of words per minute dialogue. The fact that he can turn in 500-page scripts and they turn out to be 2-hour-long movies is incredible, because the word per minute count when they just speak, like just that opening sequence alone with Jesse Eisenberg arguing with Erica Albright is just incredible. Their performances, everything is in this movie is operating at a level that is like, you almost feel like you're watching a surreal movie, but you also live in that surreal world every day. I didn't realize that a movie about the invention of a social media platform that we barely still use today, like our community uses it a lot, but like I don't think the rest of the world is really a Facebook driven society as much as it used to be. The fact that a movie about Facebook is the definitive movie of the decade is kind of speaks to the idea of the responsibility of creators and of integrity when it comes to making things, and there's sort of a dark cynicism underneath this entire movie that I think helps set this as the movie of the 2010s. I want a sequel to this so badly, because there's been so many more developments with Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook that I think it'd be a perfect time to bring Sorkin back, sit down, pen a sequel, get Eisenberg back in there. He could still do that role again, and get Fincher back to direct it, and you could have another Oscar winner on your hands in a second Social Network movie. I think this movie's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. To bounce off your thought process there about the sequel, I definitely think there's room for it, especially with all the privacy issues going on with Facebook. That would be the perfect during the court trials. Could you imagine talking about the court trials and everything going on before that? Up to it, it'd be great. The Social Network for me, along with Coho, is the definitive movie of the 2010s. It kicked off. It was the blueprint for the 2010s. Let's be honest, because it kicked everything off, and it basically made the Social Network kind of like gave everybody an outline of like some of the best movies to come out of 2010. Kind of follow this kind of same format. Anyone that may be on your top 10 list of the 2010s kind of does this. Jesse Eisenberg has never been more perfect for a role in his life. Let's be honest. Andrew Garfield is amazing in this movie. Armie Hammer playing two roles in this movie, and this is probably next to Call Me by Your Name, my favorite role that he's done. I think this movie is fantastic. If you've not seen The Social Network, go see The Social Network. But Malcolm, you gave this a lower grade on this. Thought processes. What didn't gel with you for The Social Network? What gelled with you? What didn't gel with you? Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of this movie worked for me. I loved everything about this. I did love a lot of this movie. For me, some of the things that brought it down for me is some of the performances. I thought were really bland. Like you praised Andrew Garfield. I actually didn't like him in this movie. And it's like, and for me, it just seemed like he's just really bland and all that. It's just, but like for the most part, I do enjoy this movie. I do actually go back and rewatch this movie, but yeah. And as for a sequel, whether or not I want a sequel that focuses on Facebook again, I don't know. But they could make this an anthology type movie kind of thing, in which the sequel focuses on the beginnings of Twitter. It was another social network. So
I get that. That's a pretty solid idea as well. Overall, the grade that we gave for The Social Network, there was one panelist that gave it actually lower than Malcolm, and Social Network got a B+. I think this is probably the really worst rating that we've given a movie so far. With that being said, let's move on to our next one. Malcolm, you actually haven't seen this next one, so hopefully me and Coho can sell you on it. And it's Peanut Butter Falcon. This movie is, if we're taking two roles by Shia LaBeouf this year, Honey Boy and this is the one that I think he deserves a supporting role for. A lot of people may disagree with me. I understand this. This is a role that he didn't have anything kind of to study or knew personally. I think Honey Boy, he would definitely draw inspiration from his father because it's about his father, but I think this is pulling something different. I think this story is special. It shows you that no matter what disability you may have, or what handicap you may have, you are able to persevere and do the things that you want to do with your life. I think it's a beautiful story of wanting to break free from what other people think you are. Koho, some thoughts on Peanut Butter Falcon?
Yeah, I think this is the sweetest damn movie of the year. Honestly, this movie has so much heart. I really do like it. It didn't crack my top 15 by the end of the year, which says like something about this year. It's just that incredible that I do like this movie. It's gone down a little bit on rewatches. I don't think it doesn't capture as much rewatchability factor for me. I don't love it as much every time, but after seeing it 3 times, I still really like the movie. I think it's a really special movie. It's a very passionate movie and has a great message. I think I'm going to watch it again just to see if maybe my feelings change on a 4th. But Shia LaBeouf is incredible. Zach Gottsigan's great. Dakota Johnson's great. My favorite performance in the movie is Bruce Dern, who's in it for like a minute.
Bruce Dern is great in this movie.
He's in it for like a minute, but he's like really, really good. And I love Bruce Dern in it. But yeah, if you haven't seen Peanut Butter Falcon, totally worth a watch. It's a great film. Great little film. So yeah.
Absolutely. Malcolm, did we sell you on Peanut Butter Falcon?
I didn't need any help being sold on it. Coho going on and on about Peanut Butter Falcon for the good part of the year, ever since it came out in the States, convinced me that I wanted to go see this movie. It's still on in cinemas over here, so I might try and catch it this week.
I would.
Ironically, I still haven't seen a movie that was actually released this year. So.
I've seen one, baby. Bad Boys for Life.
I'm seeing that when this is released. Absolutely. Like I said, I think Peter Parker Falcon is an amazing movie. We actually all gave it the same grade though, which is an A minus. I think that's a very respectable grade. Moving on to our next film, a film that all five, well, I don't have, like I said, we had 6 panelists, but all 5 of the panelists gave this movie pretty much right around the same grade. The next movie on on our list is Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah, Malcolm, you gave it the highest grade. Go ahead and start us off.
This is a movie that like I'm not a big action like well, but anyway, I'm not a big Tom Cruise fan, but this movie just this movie just made me sort of appreciate that whilst he does take. I mean, like it's just one of those ones in which I thought was a brilliant movie, and the concept is one that I actually found really interesting because, like, whole Groundhog Day in space, and all that. It's one of those tropes which seems to be used so many times, but it's one that when I saw this, I thought this actually works in that. And it, do I wish that they'd kept the title of the book Time for Kill or something. I can't remember what it was. Cool, but it definitely wasn't Edge of Tomorrow, that's for sure. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The renaming of this movie and not having a proper title right off the get go kind of hurt this movie when it came to like its initial breakout in the box office. But Coho, thoughts on Edge of Tomorrow?
I would never put this in like the top 20 of like the decade. Maybe not. I don't think it even makes my top 100, but like it's a good movie. I enjoy it. It's fun. I haven't really gone back to revisit it since I saw it in 2014. But yeah, it's fun. It was a really uniquely done movie. I think there's been like talks of doing a sequel for a long time now, and I'm sure we'll probably get one. But I think it's a little late now. It's been like 6 years, and I don't think there's a lot of interest now for Live, Die, Repeat Part 2. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you in those sentiments. But we're getting an Avatar sequel, so there's that. Edge of Tomorrow it's a fun adventure ride through time. And I think we accurately graded this as such. I like Ko said, I probably wouldn't have this on my top 20 of the decade, but it's still a fun ride when you do watch it. When you catch it on TV or something like that, it's a fun ride to watch. Overall, we gave Edge of Tomorrow a B+, which is pretty much right around where me and Caleb had it graded anyway, which is probably right where it needs to be. Next up on our list is Force Awakens. Ko, you actually had this ranked second highest because our one panelist isn't here. So go ahead and start us off with Force Awakens.
My appreciation for The Force Awakens has grown significantly since I first saw it in theaters. Because when I first saw it, I was really disappointed. I was like the person that walked out and everyone goes, "This is the greatest Star Wars movie since the beginning. It's so good." And I walked out, I'm like, I feel like I just watched The Force Awakens again, but I'm really confused. Like, I watched A New Hope again, but I'm really confused now. Why do we have a third Star Destroyer, Death Star? Why do I care about any of these people yet? They're kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. I love Kylo Ren. And then Last Jedi came out and I freaking loved it. Because Last Jedi was like, hey, everything that you did in the last one, forget about it. You think you know us, you don't know us. And I think Last Jedi is better, but I went back to The Force Awakens recently for my rewatch, and I had a blast. This movie is like coming like when you if you watch this movie right after watching Return of the Jedi, it's excellent. I went original trilogy right into Force Awakens, went damn. That like transition feels like perfect. It feels like it's just an updated original trilogy film. And I enjoy the hell out of it. It's a fun like amusement park ride, honestly. I think Last Jedi is still a better movie, has a lot more like story substance and stuff like that and a lot more to say. But The Force Awakens, I appreciate the ride that it is. Yeah.
Absolutely. I for me the sequel series is it's up and down at parts. And I think a lot of it's like really unbalanced at parts. But I do enjoy it for what it is. Like I said with Edge of Tomorrow, I don't know if I would have this in my top 20 of the decade, but I do enjoy it for what it is. It brought us, you know, another Star Wars film, and I don't hate that at all. Like a lot of people hate, if you hate one, you'll like one. If you like one, you'll hate it. I think all three are fine the way they are. I mean, you take them as movies, single movies, they're fine. I don't think you should have made a trilogy. I think you should have just did films for films for films. I think doing the whole trilogy trope kind of like backed them into a corner, which kind of hurt them even more. The more I watch The Force Awakens, I'm kind of even keel on it. I feel the same way that I felt about it when I first saw it. But Malcolm, you rated it a little lower than I did. Thoughts on The Force Awakens?
Yeah, like this is the sequel trilogy as a whole is once again it's been sort of up or down for me. I mean, I do love Force Awakens. It's one that, depending on sort of when I watch it, but my grade can go really high or really low. It's just one that, and it's one I even don't care that there is a lot of the similar story beats from New Hope. JJ did sort of what he needed to do to sort of get people excited about Star Wars again.
Mm.
Because I know after Force Awakens came out, there was a lot of people going out like Star Wars is back, and because he needed to get the taste of the prequels out of the mouth. So I think this was a good way to do it. Had JJ done the whole trilogy, I think we might have gone in a more cohesive sort of story.
Mm-hmm.
For the whole thing, but I think, like in a whole, I don't hate any of the trilogy. I think it was a perfect sort of ending and to that Skywalker saga, so we don't need any more with these characters.
I get that 100%. Overall, we gave The Force Awakens a B plus. I think that's a fair grading. I don't think. I think it's right around where everybody had it graded anyway, which is a pretty good mold. Next up, we move on to Steve Jobs. Me and Coho had this graded the same, but I know how passionate he is about Steve Jobs, so I'll let him start with Steve Jobs.
This is a movie I saw for the first time this year, and the fact that it hit me like that, I wasn't really expecting. I just kind of watched it because I was bored, and I knew Sorkin wrote it, and I was like, let's do this. And I jumped in, and I think the idea of telling Steve Jobs' life, not cradle to grave, because I agree with Polyama. I think those kind of biopics can be really boring and really dumb. I think that they chose 3 different states of his life and like give you the necessary exposition and like context for those scenes right before we go into them. And you see a day of his life when he's making a big technological presentation, and the way his personal life behind the scenes kind of crashes before he comes out on stage and has to be Steve Jobs. And just like the first part, he's like this really arrogant young prick, and that just like, and then the second stage of his life, he's like, I care a little bit more about my daughter. I'm starting to connect with her, but I'm not there yet. But I'm also like, everything is starting to fall apart around me on stage too. And then like, I'm going to lose my job if this presentation doesn't go well. And then the third stage of his life is twilight years of his life. The Steve Jobs we recognize, the black turtleneck, the balding hair, and he loves his daughter more than his job. And that sort of character progression through Michael Fassbender, who is incredible, should have won the Oscar that year. Sorry, Leo, wrong year for you to win an Oscar. It was Fassbender's. And Steve Jobs and Fassbender is magnificent. I think Dougie Doug is frozen.
Yeah, well, either that or he's just in stern disapproval of your love of Steve Jobs.
I don't know if he's coming back or not, so I'll just keep vamping. I'll also throw out that Daniel Pemberton score is great, and
Yes.
and that Aaron Sorkin should have been nominated, if not won, adapted screenplay. Cool.
110%. I didn't hear what you had to say, but I've heard you talk about Steve Jobs before, so I am in complete concurrence with it.
Fun fact: I said I gave it a bad grade. I just shit on Steve Jobs for 20 minutes.
That you would have lied to me, good sir. Not fair. But if you wanted to watch a documentary where he basically goes from the conception of Apple to his death, watch Jobs. I guess that movie's terrible, but I think Michael Fassbender in the role of Steve Jobs is probably one of the best of the decade. Kate Winslet and Seth Rogen as the support in this. Who knew Seth Rogen could really act like this? I think he definitely embodied Steve Wozniak. This movie is incredible. If you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're waiting for. It's one of those movies in which you kind of see it once it gets going and where it's at. I agree with Ko before I vanished. I love the 3-act structure in this, where you get a little bit of how his life is and how hectic and how much it hurt him at times. But Malcolm, you haven't seen Steve Jobs. Some thoughts. Do you want to see this? Do you not want to see this?
It's one I might visit eventually. Because I remember when it was first announced they're doing another Steve Jobs movie, and I think it was announced sort of not too long after Jobs was actually released. That they were doing it, but only focusing on 3 distinct time periods of his life. That kind of put me off, because I actually prefer as Caleb put them, the cradle to the grave kind of biopics, where you get to sort of see the whole life rather than just select few. I mean, depending on the biopic, they can work at sometimes if it's what that period that they want to focus on. But yeah, I mean, but I'll probably catch it at some stage. But yeah, it's just one that I just wasn't really interested in when it was announced.
All right, so Steve Jobs got an A. Moving on to our next picture, we're gonna go with Inception. I'm gonna kick it off since I gave this the highest grade, actually on all the panelists. I think this movie is, if we talk about Social Network being the quintessential 2010 movie, this is the quintessential Nolan movie. This movie was right before Interstellar, right before he gave us Interstellar, and it was right after the Batman series. I think this movie is incredible. While the ending is very subjective at parts, you don't know where it's going. I kind of like that, and I kind of enjoy that. I enjoy the mystery of that. I enjoy not being spoon-fed that. The movie itself is filled with this action, this literal heist movie that you have to go in several levels of a brain subconscious to get. I think it's fantastic. I think the performances in this movie, from Leo himself to Joseph Gordon-Levitt, to Tom Hardy, were fantastic in this movie. If you haven't seen Inception, I really go see it. This movie, I rewatched this actually recently, and it got me really hyped for Tenet. I don't know if you guys have watched a Nolan movie and then it gets you hyped for another Nolan movie, but that's what that does to me sometimes. But going over my list here, Malcolm, you gave it the second highest. Go ahead and talk about it real quick. We have, go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, Inception is a fun movie. It's one that I haven't seen in a while. And it's one that I will try and revisit at some stage to see if my grade just is any different, but it's one like all the performances are great, like Leo, Tom Hardy, Emily Blunt. It's just great, and it's just a fun movie to watch.
Absolutely. Coho.
I think Inception is a little overrated. I think the visual effects are really, good. I think the story is a cool idea. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. It's just I think everyone who is the greatest movie of all time, I have to be I don't know about that. I know people will counteract with oh, you love La La Land, so that with the same level of hype, but it's the difference is me, I'm a hyperbolic person, so you cannot like La La Land, that's fine, and you can love Inception. I think I came to Inception later than most, and I think it's a good movie. I just don't think it's the second coming of Christ like everyone else touted it as.
All right, well, Inception is not the second coming of Christ because it did get a B+. But we're going to move on to our last movie of the decades.
Inceptions.
That's the sequel coming out in 2022.
That's the sequel coming up. I accidentally added an S to that. But next up, we are talking about Gone Girl. The only two people on the panel that's seen Gone Girl are me and Coho, and we have pretty close grades. I think this movie is fantastic for what it is. I think Ben Affleck in this movie is great. I'm trying to remember the lead actress in this movie.
Rosamund Pike.
There you go, Rosamund Pike. The epitome of do not cross a woman ever in your life because they could turn into a psychopath like that. And I'm terrified. But I think it's a great crime movie. A lot of people don't talk about it as a crime movie as much. They talk about it as a psychological thriller, but I think it is a great crime movie because what happens at the end of the day is a full-on crime. This movie, from even Tyler Perry in this movie, is fantastic. Him outside of any of his own work, you don't get the camp. You get an actual actor, and it's really great. Coho, Gone Girl. Thoughts?
I will second everything that you have said. It's a wonderfully twisted fantasy about psychopathic, crazy person. And it's I think this movie got, I think maybe a little, I can't even say robbed because 2014 is a really hard year to say.
Yeah.
But Rosamund Pike got robbed of Best Actress. That's a fact. She I've never seen her do anything like this ever again, or a performance of this magnitude ever again. I think it's because Fincher drew the perfect amount of what he needed out of her, and she crushes. But yeah, this movie's really, really twisted, really enthralling. And you kind of go down this rabbit hole all the way through. I think Ben Affleck's the lesser part of the movie, but I can get it. Ben Affleck's just kind of doing his thing. I think it's Rosamund Pike is the real draw to check out Gone Girl if you haven't seen it.
Absolutely. Malcolm, you haven't seen it, but do you want to see it?
Yeah, once again, it's one that's been on my list to watch at some stage, but it's just somehow not been put onto my streaming services yet. So.
I got you. Well, we give Gone Girl an A-. Guys, that is our movie, 16 movies for the decade that we have gone through. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Our overall list grade is a B+. I think it's pretty good, guys. B+ is a pretty solid list. We only had one real movie in there that was a C+, and I'm excited. Coho, tell the people where they can find you. The show comes out on Sunday, so
you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Caleb Coho. That is Caleb with a K, K-O-H-O, Letterboxd, Caleb Coho, same thing. I'm over at Multiplex Entertainment. That's basically where I spend all my time and energy. I run the Fandom Fights division, which is our expanded inner geekdom, which gives you all of your geek categories plus some fun ones like Pixar and Disney and Jurassic Park and Rocky, stuff like that. We have our regular season starting up in February. You're going to get the Warzone free-for-all first, but then the following week you will get 4 fandom matches, including a fandom #1 contenders gauntlet, Ascendant versus F.U. Lucas, the Kingdom Civil War to start the fandom teams division, as well as a fandom teams #1 contender and a fandom singles debut match. So all sorts of good stuff coming from the world of Multiplex. Go subscribe, check all that stuff out. Co-Oscars going on. Yeah.
all right. And Malcolm, where can the people find you?
You can find me hosting Rankum every Saturday nights now. And last night we had a Will Smith episode. The poll hasn't. We've recorded this a day early, so the poll hasn't been decided. We don't know what next week's topic's going to be yet. On Formula Random, I host that. The regular season will be starting up in February, but there has been a few matches for Trivia Fun throughout this week. So yeah, it's going to be lots of stuff and all of the families.
Nice. As always, you can find me here on Take 3, running the Manor. This has been great. We have a lot of other stuff coming out of Take 3. Make sure you're checking out the channel. I do compete over in Multiplex as well, so check me out over there. Full Metal as well. And then I have a D&D video play along called The Adventures of Transvail. Go check it out. Hopefully, we will be back soon with more episodes. But guys, it's been a great time at the Manor. Thank you for showing up and drinking some tea and talking in some movies. But we'll catch you next time. Just knock and enter.